Hey guys! So in 2020, there was a huge explosion at the port of Beirut, Lebanon. The sound wave was so powerful that it was heard across the country and even across the borders. At least 100 people died and over 4,000 more were injured in the explosion, but it wasn't the first nuclear-sized explosion in human history. Halifax explosion. The strongest explosion before the nuclear age happened on December 6, 1917, in a Halifax harbor. The French military transport Mont Blanc was loaded with explosives and collided with the Norwegian ship Emo in the Narrows. A fire started on the ship that led to an explosion, resulting in the port and the Richmond district being completely destroyed. About 2,000 people died in the explosion, under broken buildings, from fires or surging waters 60 feet high. About 9,000 people were injured, and several hundred lost their sight. Halifax had 1,600 buildings destroyed. Another 12,000 were seriously damaged, and at least 25,000 people were hurt. The Halifax explosion was equivalent to almost 3 kilotons of TNT. Chicago Port. On July 7, 1944, there was an explosion in a Chicago port while loading ammo onto a transport ship. The E.A. Bryan and the Quinault exploded, destroying a large part of the port that day. 320 people were instantly killed, and another 390 were injured. Fragment injuries were also in the city itself. The full crews of both ships died. 81 body pieces were found, and only 30 of them were identified. The explosion was the equivalent to 2 kilotons of TNT. Heligoland. On April 18, 1947, British engineers caused an explosion on Heligoland Island that belonged to Germany. The explosion's purpose was to destroy German bunkers and structures built by the Third Reich for submarines. 4,000 torpedo tips, 9,000 sea mines and bombs, and 91,000 various grenades simultaneously flew into the air. In total, there was 6,700 tons of explosives, and the explosion itself became the most powerful non-nuclear explosion in human history. The Brits planned on the explosion completely destroying the island. However, it survived with a permanently changed landscape. The entire southern part of the island turned into a massive crater that is now a tourist destination. Texas City. On April 16, 1947, there was an explosion in Texas that led to a fire on board the French ship Grand Camp. It resulted in about 2,100 tons of ammonium nitrate detonating, leading to a chain reaction of fires and explosions in the nearby ships and oil storage facilities. Only the seabed remained where the Grand Camp was. It seemed like the explosion evaporated the ship and the water beneath it. Only a few people on the port during the explosion survived, and some of their survivals were miraculous. At least 581 people died in the catastrophe. Over 5,000 people were injured, and 1,784 of them were hospitalized. The explosion was equivalent to 2.7 kilotons of TNT. Operation Sailor Hat. A series of tests by the U.S. Navy called Operation Sailor Hat are included in the list of history's largest non-nuclear explosions. It was a series of tests carried out in 1965 on the Kauai Island in Hawaii. The goal was to determine the way a high-powered blast wave acted on military ships and the equipment on them. Each test involved large explosions of at least 500 tons of explosive material. The explosives were arranged interestingly, as well as semi-spherical mounds made up of 3 million 150-gram TNT packs. The explosions were made nearby stationary ships, and the ships were moved closer with each explosion. There were 3 explosions in total: Bravo on February 6, 1965, Charlie on April 16, 1965, and Delta on June 19, 1965. These explosions can be characterized as tossing money in the wind. The explosives cost $1 million. But despite the explosion's strength, the ships remained floating. Additionally, the blast wave during the tests destroyed 2 observation blimps. Project Medio. Almaty, Kazakhstan is located near mountains and at the delta of the Malaya-Almaty River. Destructive mud flows about once every 50 years bring up to 35 million cubic feet of debris, causing serious damage and human casualties. Now, in order to radically protect the city, it was necessary to build a powerful shield and redirect the river. The project to create a dam included carrying out 2 powerful directed explosions. The first explosion of over 5 kilotons was necessary to damage the right slope, and then a second charge of about 4 kilotons on the left was made to complete the explosions. The dam would be built a bit above the Medio Mountain skating rink, where the valley slopes were close together and where it would be easiest to push them closer to each other. The first explosion was on October 21st, 1966, and the second was on April 14th, 1967. The dam's volume after these 2 explosions was approximately 106 cubic feet. This huge mass is made of demolished granite. The average height of the dam is about 280 feet, and the width of the base is over 1,640 feet, while the width at the top is about 330 feet. Ufa train disaster, Russia. In June 1989, the West Siberia, Ural, Povalsy pipeline that transported a liquefied gas mixture developed a hole. About 3 hours before the catastrophe, instruments showed a decrease in pipeline pressure. However, instead of looking for the leak, the caretakers simply increased the flow to restore the pressure. The later investigation showed that there was an approximately 3-foot-long crack that developed under the high pressure, which leaked a significant amount of propane, butane, and other inflammatory hydrocarbons over several days. They formed a huge gas lake thanks to the weather conditions. Workers warned the passing trains that there was a lot of gas in the area, and the smell of gasoline was present, but it wasn't something to worry about. On June 4th, 1989, at 1:15 a.m. local time, wheel sparks from a passing train caused a powerful gas explosion and gigantic fire. Unfortunately, 3,000 feet away from the pipeline were 2 passenger trains filled with people. The explosion was powerful enough for the blast wave to break glass in Asha over 6 miles away from the incident, and the fire plume was visible from over 60 miles away. The fire covered about 615 acres. The highest temperature at the epicenter reached over 1,830 degrees Fahrenheit. The explosion was equivalent to 12 kilotons of TNT, approximately equal to the Hiroshima nuclear explosion. Officially, 575 people died, and 623 were handicapped and received serious burns and injuries. Tianjin. On August 12, 2015, there was an unbelievably strong explosion in a warehouse of dangerous goods in the Chinese port city of Tianjin. The first explosion was equivalent to 3 tons of TNT, and the second was equivalent to 21 kilotons of TNT, making it visible from space. Earthquakes measuring 2.3 and 2.9 on the Richter scale were measured during the explosions. The blast wave broke windows in buildings 1.5 miles away from the explosion. The fireball melted about 1,000 new Renault cars that were in an open-air parking lot belonging to a local dealer. Dozens of structures near the factory collapsed. 100 fire trucks were sent immediately after the explosions to put out the massive fires. Investigators later learned that the catastrophe was caused by a container with dry nitrocellulose that ignited the neighboring containers of ammonium nitrate and other chemicals. The blast wave injured 500 people, and 173 people died, including 92 firefighters. The city turned into smoking ruins. Beirut. On August 4th, 2020, while repairs were underway on fixing a hole that someone could have used for theft in the Lebanese capital, there was a detonation of 3,000 tons of ammonium nitrate being held in a warehouse. The first explosion created a smoke cloud over a flame and fires that looked like fireworks. The second explosion shook central Beirut and created a dust mushroom cloud. The explosion was equivalent to 2.2 kilotons. The blast wave killed about 150 people and injured about 5,000. The city's infrastructure received significant damage and 300,000 residents lost their homes. The Beirut explosion was the second strongest man-made explosion in the 21st century and is in the top 5 most powerful non-nuclear explosions in human history. Well, that's all for today. Be sure to like, leave a comment, let me know how you found this video in the first place, and we'll see you again next time.